Hi there. This is Sean, and this is going to be a video about URLs and linking. So, I've been getting a lot of questions lately about how to link to other pages and how to link to content within a page. So, I'm using as an example here the advanced markup assignment. I'm going to put the link to this repository in the description for this video. And this is an assignment that has you doing a few different tasks on a little 3-page mini site dedicated to Edgar Allan Poe's poem Sonnet to Science. So, within this project, you're asked to make a couple different types of links. First of all, you have to link between the pages. And so here is our primary navigation on the About Poe page. And as you can see, this is a pretty traditional looking navigation list. It's inside of a nav element. It has 3 items in the navigation. They all link to each other. They're all in the same directory. And then it applies an active class to the active page. That's a pretty typical setup. And these links here are known as relative links. So what does relative link mean? It means that the file is, the browser is going to attempt to find the file based on the location of the file that it's reading currently. So if we link to index.html, it's just going to look for index.html in the same directory on the server. If we look over here at our directory structure, we can see index.html and aboutpoe.html are indeed in the same folder. In fact, this site is entirely in the same folder. So aboutpoe.html and interpretation.html also in the same folder, so these relative links will always find it. Now, the advantage of a relative link is that we can make changes to how we deploy this site, and as long as we keep all these files together in the same folder, they're always going to be able to be found. If we move the files around and start putting them in different subfolders, then we're going to break these relative links. That's really good in some situations. In other situations, we want to use what are known as absolute links. Absolute links begin with either an HTTPS or a slash. So if we scroll down a little bit, we have the share area, and we have a set of links in here. And these links just go to common social media sharing websites. So we aren't linking to any particular file on these websites, and we aren't linking to any particular, sub-location. We're just linking to their primary home pages. And as you can see, we're using absolute links here. We're saying http://twitter.com. And that will work. And it'll work well, and there's no other way to really link to twitter.com. We don't have twitter.com on this server. It doesn't live with these files over here. We have to use an absolute link. And most often use absolute links when you're writing small websites like this. You are referencing other domains. You use absolute links to reference other domains. There is another kind of absolute link that we could use, and that would be an absolute link that just starts with a slash. So instead of saying index.html, we could say /index.html. And instead of saying aboutpoe.html, we could say /aboutpoe.html. And instead of saying interpretation.html, we could say /interpretation.html. Now, this is an important thing to remember, because if you use these slashes without thinking, you're going to encounter situations where it appears that your web page works, but then randomly it doesn't work. So in this situation, when we preview the web page on Code Anywhere, I'll click over to this tab. I'm going to refresh this page so that we pick up those latest changes. When we preview this web page, you can see that this URL, there's a big nasty subdomain here, and it's very long, and then .box.codeanywhere.com. That entirely is the domain for this website, and it's the domain for this test website. Then at the root of this domain, it just is /aboutpo.html. So if we use an absolute URL on this domain to serve out this page, then that will work. No problem. We'll run into problems, however, if we try to deploy this to a subdirectory. So if we deployed this, for example, on GitHub Pages, where the GitHub Pages URL would have the name, it would be in the subdirectory that was named for the project, then this link would break. So let's see how that would happen. So in here we are linking absolute links, and when we click, we get all of our pages fine. So it works because we're at the root of the domain. So what we could do is we can move our About Po page, or we can move our linked pages into subdirectory. So in here, let's make a new folder, call it site maybe, and we can move interpretation.html and aboutpo.html into site. And what that will allow us to see is how these links interact. So about Po and interpretation are inside site, and then index.html is still at the main root. So what that means is that in our about Po file here, index.html is linked and it's specifying the root, and that's correct. But our links back to ourself and to the interpretation.html file are both prefixed with the slash, which means it's going to look for those in the root directory as well, and it's going to fail. So if I refresh this, I get a 404 because that aboutpo.html no longer exists. So when I visit the root, if I click here, these are relative links, and these are going to fail. If I change the link, the URL, I can see this, but notice that the reference to my image is a relative reference, and that fails. If I click home, I get to the index because I used the slash to make that home link absolute, but we can look at that in the inspector and verify that that's what we expect. But as you see, with About Po and with interpretation, I use those as absolute links, and those are going to break now because those files don't exist in the root directory anymore. So if I wanted to fix that, I could go back into Code Anywhere, and I could make it so that I could make it use absolute URLs with the subdirectory. And if I do that, oh, I need to reopen these files because I moved them. So let me go ahead and reopen this one. And if I add the subdirectory, then that absolute link will return to working. So if I refresh this and I inspect these links, you can see down here /site/aboutpo is going to give us a good link back to this here, and then /site/interpretation should work. And then on this interpretation, or on the About Po link on the interpretation page, remember we never changed that one, so it's just using a relative link here to About Po, and when we click that, it works as well. So that's how absolute and relative links work. There's one other kind of link that we care about when we're working in pages, and that is internal page links. So these internal page links, we have a challenge here to link these footnotes, like we see right here, to the proper citations down below. So if we scroll down, we can see that we have this list of citations in the bibliography. Now, each of these citations have an ID on the page, and IDs can be linked to in a URL. We use this often to provide direct links to like subheadings. And so, for example, we have the table has an ID of selected works. We might want to share that link directly to the table rather than to the page itself. For the internal links here, we're going to link to those internal ones, which are just citation-1, citation-2, and citation-3. So the way that we can do that is to just put in a regular link tag, anchor tag, and we reference the ID the same way that we reference it in CSS. So we use the hash sign and then citation. So the hash sign and then the ID name. So we'll do the same thing here. And there is that one that goes to citation 2. So I'm going to save that and then go back here to the About Poe and refresh. And we can see these links here. So here's citation 1 and over here is citation 2. And if we click citation 1, it takes us and shows us this. Now it doesn't scroll all the way up to the top of the page because this is the bottom of the page, but it did actually show us that. And you notice that it modified the URL and put that #citation1 into the URL. So similarly, if we scroll back up and we click 2, that will jump us back down again, and it puts #citation2 up into the URL. Hash and pound are interchangeable. You can use whichever word you want to refer to what that symbol is. And if we inspect this, we can see that our href citation 1 is defined properly in the HTML there. So that's how internal links work. It's a good habit to get into to add IDs to any of your headings, and especially if those IDs can include good keywords, because that will help with search engine optimization. And then also it lets people provide links to directly to specific content. This is also the same thing that happens when we're reviewing code on GitHub. We see that if we click any of these line numbers here, if we wanted to talk about line 15, you notice that after you click it, it actually puts the hash and ID up in the URL so that you can actually get to that spot on the page. So if you wanted to, you could share a link that would take you directly to line 15 or line whatever. So this is a very common practice. It's used all over the place to enhance the way that we can share links and the way that we can direct people to specific content online. So that's a basic orientation about URLs and linking. I hope you enjoyed. Consult the repository for some of these resource files if you want to play around with them. And otherwise, have lots of fun exploring URLs. Bye.